Hey, everybody, welcome. I am your host, Hanifar Jordan, and you are tuning into my colorful journey. I love having these great stories with wonderful guests speaking about their colorful journey in life. I call it colorful because it really is, and at the end of that beautiful rainbow, which is the covenant that God gave us, right? You see your peace, you understand your calling, you tap into your gifts, and sometimes that road doesn't look pretty. It's colorful, but it ain't that pretty. So, with no longer ado, I want to introduce my wonderful guest, Jenny. So, let's get into it. Can you hear me?
Hello, how are you?
So I want just talk about your journey that led you to writing great poetry.
Well, I started writing poetry at about 13. It was my escape from dealing with things at home, not feeling heard, not feeling understood, dealing with depression. Yeah, that's when I started writing poetry and getting into it. And one thing was not being heard and understood at home at 13. And then my teacher at the time, my English teacher, I'll never forget her. Her name was Miss Berry. I was the worst student for her in ninth grade, but by 10th, 11th grade, I was one of her favorite students because she discovered and she tapped into my love of poetry. And she used to have poetry slams in the class, and we would write, and it was a place for me where I felt safe to express myself and be seen.
And that's what we want. We want to be seen. And I really mean to see you. You know what I mean? To see me, to see the depths of me.
Mm-hmm.
And it's rare that people actually see that or experience that with individuals. And I want you to take us on the journey of the 13-year-old girl who lived at home and felt invisible. What did that look? What did that colorful journey look like for you?
Ooh.
You didn't expect that? She said, "Well, I didn't expect that one."
So let's talk about it. My journey at 13, I went to a predominantly white high school. I was one of the few black women in my school. Yeah, now that I think about it, it was like 4 of us. So I dealt with a lot of identity issues. And then at home, my parents were working. I grew up in a 2-family household, but I was a stepchild. My siblings have the same father. I don't have the same father as my siblings. So it was a lot of confusion and chaos within that in that time, especially when you're a young woman. You're
understand it.
You're trying to figure out life. You're already in an environment and you're in your home life where you don't feel apart, and in your school life you also don't feel apart. So it was a lot at 13 years old.
Do you think your experience at home was did you project? Do you believe that now, hindsight 2020, do you think you project your loneliness of not having the same father, or were you treated differently is why you felt the way that you did?
I was definitely treated differently. I always felt, I don't think I felt, maybe there was, now that I'm a grown woman and I can think back, there was a level of loneliness there or not being a part of, and I actually wrote a poem about that called At 13. Some of these poems in my book are from when I was 13, and I just took pieces of poems from my younger years all the way up to my adult years.
Let's hear it. Let's hear your story. Oh yes, honey.
Put me on the spot.
On the spot, girl. Man. On the spot.
So, it's called Broken Picture.
Wow, that title's powerful.
And let's see if I can find it.
Especially at 13, to say something like that is powerful.
Yeah, this book has pieces of I call this book, which is called Screenshots of Life, I call this book a coming of age.
Okay.
Because I felt like it took something that a lot of adolescents went through. So I took things from my adolescence and things that I experienced as an adult woman and put it in. And so it takes you through the stages of things that you experience through life. So
I think that's beautiful, though. And I think I love your soft, you're so soft-spoken, but you have this beautiful meekness about yourself that I think you may have interpreted at one point to be weakness, but it's actually your strength. And so it's so beautiful to see that in you and working out the things that you need to, because we all have childhood trauma. All of us do. And the key is healing from it, learning from it, and being better. And who are we helping along the way? And so I do believe that your poetry book is going to help someone along the way. But with no further ado, let's hear your poem, honey.
So, Broken Picture. A fist of concrete hits my why am I messing up? I'm sorry.
No, don't be. It's because I put you on the spot. But I want you to be comfortable. We're like old sisters, girl. You're just showing me a snippet of something that you wrote, and you're able to share it with me so that I can understand you more. So I want you to look at it that way. Like, you want to understand my journey, honey? This is how you understand my journey. You understand what took me on the roller coaster of depression. I have it, and I understand that depression, roller coaster, and it's waves of it that we go through. You're not always depressed, but it's,
yes,
because people think, that you're always, no, it's just waves of it, but when it comes, it hits. And so how do we work through that? And you being able to share your journey with your poetry is going to help someone else on their journey, especially someone dealing in adolescence, because that's a whole nother, when you're 13, you're going through hormonal stuff. You're just going through a whole lot of
all
stuff.
All the things, yes.
Yes. And sometimes it's hard for parents to relate, which I don't know why, because we went through it ourselves. But
but you're so far removed from that experience.
Well,
you are.
To a certain degree, because as an adult, you're going through your own set of new things, right? And so you are now in a different mindset, but also as an adult, you're still dealing, some parents have not healed themselves, so they're still dealing with childhood trauma, and so they don't know how to even deal with it when we see it in our child. So, it's all about growing. But I'm ready for your poem.
So, Broken Picture. And as my alarm goes off, praising it. Broken Picture. A fist of concrete hits my pillowy flesh. A look of confusion, tears of liquid emotion flows down my face. Called yourself a father figure. It was a joint deal when you met her. She birthed your seed. Cast me out of the family, black sheep among the white. No matter, 'cause mine and their blood still unite. And I wrote that at 13.
Woo! Girl, that's deep. Just those words. Cast me out as a black sheep. And I understand that. the black sheep thing, and sometimes it's generational.
Mm-hmm.
And that's also a lesson, I think, in that poem is for us parents. If we do have children and you start dating someone else, other than that person's father, you have to really make sure that the person is really, really, really here, not just that you're a package deal.
Mm-hmm.
And so in order to love you, they have to love their child. If not, it's just not going to work. And if it is going to work, that means that the parent has compromised their child. And that's a hard reality as well. Because I just don't believe in that. I always told my husband, if we don't work, I'm good, because I just can't do that to them, because I understand I've been a stepchild. I understand that pain. And so I just don't want that. I know people always tell me, well, that doesn't mean who you get with, May.
Yeah.
Love them. I say, I'd just rather wait till they're adults and on their own, if that's the case. You get what I'm saying? For me.
Yes.
And then we can go from there, I said, because that's a different pain.
That is a different pain. And as an adult woman now, I look back and I'm like, those years were my developmental years where I needed the most support, because I needed that support from both adults that were in my life. And yes, they were going through their own things, but those were really rocky years in my development as a young woman, a black woman of color. There was so many elements that I feel as parents, they dropped the ball for me.
Yeah, and that's fair. And that's your experience. You don't owe anybody an apology for your experience. But what I will say, I'm going to challenge you here so that you do not have bitter root judgment carrying on with you throughout your adulthood and when God blesses you to be married, right? So my challenge to you is to forgive.
I have.
Amen.
I have.
Forgiveness is going to free you. It's not easy, though. I say it's easier said than done. I know. You can say it all day, but it's harder to forgive in the pain.
Yes, absolutely. A lot of people don't talk about mental health often, but my last resort was therapy.
Amen.
And I've consistently done it for X amount of years, and I thought that writing my books, and I feel like art heals. Because I think at 13, if I didn't have those artistic outlets, I would not have physically been here anymore. When I think back, this book only touches lightly on some of the things that I wrote in my teens. When I look at the other books that I have, and I'm like, oh, I was, and there was nobody. Yeah, there was nobody. I look at some of the poems that didn't make it into this book, and I'm like, woo.
Yeah.
There was nobody really seeing these things. There was nobody there. And
you know why?
Because
I feel that generation was raising us on survival and not love. And they're just more, at the time, life happened.
Yep.
Life happened to them. And instead of, when you're raised on survival, the parents are worried about the roof over your head and the food, and that's it. The basics, right? Or is you in school, making sure, hey, just pass your test, just get you good grades, right?
Yes.
But I had to make a conscious decision to stop raising minds on survival and raise them on love.
Love, ooh. I felt that.
Yeah, that I didn't need to have what I thought made me look successful. That even if it was just us in a 2-bedroom and we were happy and loving each other and enjoying each other's company, then I won already.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And so, and there's plenty of times that I've dropped the ball. I'm not a perfect parent.
Nobody.
And I'm pretty sure they got some childhood trauma, and it's just that they voice their stuff. They don't hide. They just tell me. And I'm sure there's things that they are holding now, but I make sure that we're all in counseling.
And just feel safe when you have that counselor or somebody to like feel safe to share these things.
Yes.
I was like, woof.
Yes, it took me until my late 30s and later in my 40s to really appreciate counseling, and I needed it. But it took me in my 40s to accept that I needed to have to be on medication. Because you cannot manage PTSD, anxiety, and depression by yourself, and that's what I have. And so I thought I could, and yes, I had coping mechanisms, right, dealing with, but it was coming out in different ways. So. And then you become the toxic friend that you never thought you would become, or you become the person, the only thing people hear from you is your pain. And I mean, shoot, they got to protect their peace at some point. They can't always listen to your stuff. So I appreciate having a counselor now more than ever. Somewhere I can lay it out on the table. And I encourage it. And I don't hide it, and I tell my truth, too, because I want other people to be okay, especially with this show. This show is really about, you know, your colorful journey. It's talking about it. Because how can we get through it if we don't open our mouth and speak about it?
That's true. That is true. I've known you for so many years. Now that I think about it, I'm like, oh my God, I really have known this woman. And not just that, you've inspired me throughout the years. Like, I've since left the Facebook arena, but we converse on Facebook often. And I left Facebook, then you left Facebook. We found each other on other social networks.
Yes.
And it kind of like
full circle.
Around. Yeah, and I was just like, I've always been inspired by your journey.
Oh, thank you. That means a lot. That means that I'm doing what God is telling me. When He tells me to post, I post. When He tells me to speak, I speak. Because a lot of times what I'm watching is a lot of us, especially as believers, think that we're always supposed to talk, that we're always supposed to prophesy, that we're always supposed. I'm like, do we get permission from God? And so for me, I just try to take my time out to get permission. And what is it that He wants me to do? And that brings me to my question to you. When did you get the permission to God to say, you know what, when did God place it on you to say, it's time? It's time to put this book together. It's time.
This pandemic.
Amen.
I was living in New York, dealing with a lot of changes. I lost my job. The pandemic happened, and I was really trying to figure out what it was. And I was in my apartment in New York, and I was like, what's next? Because it's a pandemic. I'm far from my family. I do not want to. I was stuck in New York for 8 months looking at my apartment walls, going grocery shopping with masks on. My family is in the South, and I was like, what do I do next?
Yeah.
What do I do next? And I had this book, and I have a professor, and he tapped me and he said, you promised me your first book. I'll never forget it. And he said, you have time. You promised me your first book. And I said, that is a promise that I made. I said, I will honor it. And when I was sitting in this pandemic, and, you know, I was going through things within the pandemic now, just because there was a lot of things swirling around.
Come on.
And a lot of shadow work, a lot of inner work, because you're forced to sit with yourself, right?
Yeah.
You can't go out, you can't socialize, everything is, and I'm not a phone person like that. I don't. I stay to myself, so I like socializing, going to parks and stuff, but I was like, I don't want to be on no Zoom. I don't
like that. I'm the same way. I'm just like, I'm with you.
Yes.
I understand it 100%. And but you're right. It makes you sit with yourself. The COVID has made us people with family that are living in the house. It made me also appreciate
family time,
each individual,
and
cherish it.
I think the hardest part was I was in New York. My family was down here, and I could only talk to them through the computer. Yeah. Through my phone. I couldn't touch them. And I remember crying to my mom and my sister. I said, I don't know how this is going to pan out. I don't even know if I'm going to be able to hug you again.
Right.
When it first started, remember New York was the epicenter of this pandemic. And everything, when I mean you've never seen New York shut down with nobody. Nobody was walking outside. Everybody was in their homes. And I remember crying to my mom because people were just dying. And I was like, I don't know if I'm going to see you at the end of this because I don't know what it's going to look like. I don't know what our future is. But all I can do is call you every week and cry and talk to you because this is all that I can do. I have a very close relationship with my younger sister. And I was like, I don't know if I'm going to see you. I don't know. And with me having that family dynamic that was split up, I have siblings in Texas who lost their mom to COVID, and I didn't know if I was going to see them. You know what I mean? So
yeah, trust me. I did it. I lost my mom 2019 of cancer.
Ooh,
that did something. That's something else. I don't wish that on anybody. And a daughter in 2018. Trust me, I understand. I had a stillborn. A lot of people don't know my story, but I tell it now, And so I understood what triggered my mental stability. But I also had to do some real deep work because I realized, well, the mental has been there for a long time, though. This is just what made it come to real surface. Right? And it's a cry out for help. And so I just want you to know, Jeannie, you ain't alone. I'm just a text away, child. I will call you if you need to talk. Because right now we need to know, the body of Christ needs to know that we're not alone. Although we feel alone because we're stuck in the house. But keep in mind, this is the season of Passover anyway. Passover season, anoint your doors. It's a reason why God has us home, and why these things are going on. And this is the perfect time, especially for entrepreneurs, really, to pivot and recreate and take a moment. But this time, without leaving God out of our routines. I don't even want to say routines, without leaving God out of our day. Give Him the first fruits. The first fruit isn't just our tithing. It's your first of your day, the first of your night. You get what I'm saying? The first of your evening. Start going to your Father. He's our Father. He wants the best for us. But but like any father, who wants us to call on Him only when we need? How about have a relationship with Him, so He knows that He talks to you every day at a certain time? Right? So, this pandemic has opened our eyes to a lot. Not having the human touch. Goodness. Like, yeah.
I mean,
I know I don't like people like that, but goodness.
It's needed. You have your good homegirls that you go and spend time with. I'm not a mom yet, so I don't have that child that, you know what I mean? I'm not.
And even then, you're going to trust me when you do. You're going to want some female time. You're going to want to get away from them. Okay?
I don't have that. I just have my immediate family, my extended cousins and stuff like that, that I talk to. So that's my family. That's my family dynamic. And Man, when I tell you I sat with myself, but there was some good things that came out of the pandemic. I wrote a book. Yeah. I became certified as a yogi. I started doing other things like birth worker training. There was beauty at the end of, well, the pandemic is still going on, but there was beauty within that work. I got deeper understanding of who I was. Birth workers education that I took, it didn't only just focus on just learning. I did work on me by reading other books that was, that was with it's called Why the G, Intuitive Birth Workers, which is something that we need right now. Oh wait, I'm saying it wrong. Why the G is her Instagram. IBOP is the school that I took my birth worker training in. Okay. And yeah, I went through some things this summer. I went through some more things, and I've relocated from New York. I finally was able to see my family. Like, there were so many things that happened in 8 months during COVID, but it was like beauty within the chaos. That's I just kept looking for.
I totally get that, though. I totally get that. I think there is sometimes beauty in the chaos, but and I'm talking about the chaos that we don't control. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Not the chaos that we invite in our lives.
Yes.
But the chaos that you just don't have any control over, there's beauty in that. Yes. And so I'm happy you're home, though. You need to be with your family. So I'm happy to hear that you're not in New York. That's a big place to be by yourself.
I was going through it. I'm happy that I was able to heal and talk about a lot of the traumas before I came home. I was able to do those things this summer. Like, after I wrote the book, I gave it to my mom, and I was like, read
Here
it.
You go. Yeah.
And then we started to unpack some things, because now I'm a grown woman. I can talk about them in a way that has less emotional attachment to the thing.
But you have such a beautiful meekness. That's your gift. And so I think your mom would be able to receive it. It's always, what I tell my children is always, and even if she doesn't receive it right away, for us parents, right, just give us a moment. Because what we have to deal with is also the acknowledgement that we caused our own child some pain. That's hard.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
That's hard. That's true. And so even for me to hear it from my kids and to hear that I caused some brokenness in them, that hurts. And that was hard. Mm-hmm. That's a hard pill to swallow. Although I accept it, I accept their experience with me. It took me a little bit. I was like, I need a week or so. And then we can revisit the conversation,
Absolutely.
But, I'm happy that you've had that moment, because, there's questions I still have for my mom and my dad. I have no parents here, and that's hard for me because I can't pick up the phone to call no one, to say mom or, dad, and I forget sometimes that my mom isn't here because she just passed. So for me, I remember last year I picked up the phone to call her because our phone calls are always on Sundays. And I picked up the phone to call her and was like, oh, yeah, she's not even here. And that was hard.
I know. I can understand.
Yeah. So I'm proud of you for opening up. And now that you're an adult woman, you can see her as a woman. Does that make sense? So I was able to see my mom as a woman who at one point was looking for love and found it in sometimes the wrong people who hurt, but had to hide her emotions because she had kids to raise, who had to, I got it. I didn't get it when I was younger, but I got it when I got older.
Yes, that was one thing that I noticed this summer. After writing this book, after talking to my mom, after experiencing life as an adult woman, I said, oh, I get it now.
Yeah.
It was that aha moment this summer where I was like, oh, and I was able to have some compassion.
There, that's the key. Compassion and some mercy, because God extends mercy to us every day. The least we can do is extend it to other people. And don't get me wrong, as I explain to my children, forgiveness doesn't equal trust, and nor does it mean that they have to rekindle a relationship with someone.
Yes.
If they show you that they're not worthy of that relationship.
Yes.
Forgiveness is a release for yourself, and never forget that the Word teaches us that God forgives us at the same measure we forgive others.
Yes.
So you want to forgive, and I mean wholeheartedly forgive and wish them the best, but that doesn't mean that you have to have trust in somebody. That trust is earned. That's not given.
Yes.
And the true trust is only really supposed to lie in Christ. We're only supposed to really give our trust to Him, because He is the only one that doesn't forsake us or leave us. And when you get that, then as a parent, you realize that your kids will forsake you and you will forsake them. And so you're going to constantly need forgiveness and grace and mercy and love, because the only one that guaranteed no forsakeness is Christ. That's it. That's the only one. And that makes you human, and that makes you understand life a little more. How can people get your book, for one? You want to make sure they know that.
I'll show you the book. This is my book.
Get it.
My best friend actually took pictures of me in the summertime in New York. And at first I didn't even know that this was going to be my cover. We were just being friends, being creative, and it was selected. His name is Daniel. But you can find this book on Barnes & Noble. I'm currently trying to get it on Amazon, which has been a process.
Which is crazy for me. I can get my stuff on Amazon, but I'm having a process trying to figure out Barnes & Noble's. Lord have mercy.
But it is available on Barnes & Noble right now, barnesandnoble.com.
Okay.
And, Lulu's, I think, is also on Lulu's. It's in a couple of other places. It's just Amazon's giving me the hard time. And I wanted to do, so my soft launch was January 22nd, saying that the book exists. And it was on Barnes & Noble. And then I'll probably do a bigger one when it finally is released on Amazon.
Awesome. And I wanted just to give you this. You can also do a virtual book signing. I did that for my book.
Okay.
And you can date it and have people go and order your book. So you give them a time to get it. And then you can do your, talk about what was their favorite poem and things of that nature. I don't want you to let anything stop you from launching and having a big launch, although we're in COVID.
Thank you. I would definitely contact you and be like, hey, it's time.
Yes. Girl, yes, because I will be there zooming in and reading the book. Okay?
Yes. Okay. I'm so excited.
Thank you for coming on my show. I really appreciate you for being here, being so transparent and open about your journey of mental health and surviving being a teen and the parent and child dynamic and opening up and also healing and showing, the youth that you can still heal to keep living, get a little older so you can understand your parent, but healing is on the way and forgiveness is there. So thank you so much for being on. I really appreciate that.
Thank you for having me. First of all, seeing your beautiful face.
Oh, yours too, girl.
It's been a while, so I'm grateful for this time to talk to you.
Me too. And I want to leave my audience with this. If you change your mindset, you're able to change your life. It starts in the mind and in the spirit and in the things that you speak and then your habits. It's up to you to change that. So with that being said, God bless, and thank you all for tuning in.